So we've got NFL insider Adam Schefter believing that Sam Darnold has the edge on Trey Lance. And so Adam Schefter was on Pat McAfee, on the Pat McAfee show today. And, he was just sort of giving his insight on, the 49ers draft when they traded up. And he was talking about how 49ers, originally intended to select Mac Jones with that pick, but they gave themselves ample time, to evaluate the other quarterbacks, and they ended up falling in love with Trey Lance.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I think the main thing that I want to stick to, or the main points, is that one, he expects Brock Purdy to be the starter, which I think everybody has been saying. So it's not necessarily news. But when he talks about the quarterback 2 competition, he says that he thinks Darnold has the advantage over Lance. I know I probably just talked into a circle right there, but I really don't like this, and it's no disrespect to Adam Schefter. This is just what he's hearing. I don't like that he's probably hearing that Sam Darnold is is doing better. I mean, I've heard like the stats coming out of training camp, like from the beat writers. And it doesn't seem like Darnold is necessarily taking a step ahead of Lance, or Lance is taking a step ahead of Darnold. It kind of seems like, they're both kind of just having, solid camps so far. But I think that the reason why I don't like hearing it, that Darnold has the edge, I think has to do with the fact that the 49ers, I mean, they've already invested in Trey Lance, and he's still under contract. Not only did they invest in Trey Lance, they invested heavily in him. He was supposed to be the future. You were the chosen one.
Yeah.
But let's not forget, Sam Darnold has struggled everywhere he's been so far.
Yeah.
And to say that this guy is beating out, or has the green light to beat out the player that was just the number 3 overall pick 2 years ago, it's bad business, man. To spend 3 first-round picks on a kid, and you don't give him an opportunity in his rookie season, and then it just makes me upset. Like, I don't know, to think about as a fan. I believe that Trey Lance will be better than Sam Darnold. There's no question about that. I think that he just has to get some NFL experience. But that's not even a high bar to set. Sam Darnold has a good arm. He just makes poor decisions, and he says that he sees ghosts.
And he gets mono.
Yeah. Mike, do you have thoughts while I just kind of gather mine for a second?
Yeah. Well, I kind of laughed, and I was waiting for you to say it. But, you mentioned Trey Lance being this former 3rd overall pick, and I was thinking in my head, so is Sam Darnold, But it's different. This is a guy who's been in the league at least 2 more years than Lance. And like you said, he's failed not at 1, but 2 stops. He had, I would say he had a worse opportunity than, this is a bad comparison, but he had a worse opportunity in New York than Derek Carr ever had in Oakland and Vegas, And I think with the Panthers, it was a similar thing where that was a team on the decline, and they ended up with they earned the 9th overall pick, but they traded for the 1st, because they need a new quarterback, and Sam Darnold helped improving that, But I also think that this Shanahan offense is very quarterback friendly, which kind of goes both ways for this conversation because, yes, that's good for Darnold, but also, like you said, Trey Lance hasn't had, or I should say you alluded to, Trey Lance hasn't had much field time. You know, all he needs is to get out on the field, and if this is such a quarterback-friendly offense, maybe it works out for him. You know, he has the mobile ability, and I would say he has just as good of an arm, if not a better arm, than Sam Darnold. So if he can utilize those tools as a prospect, he's clearly, you know, the better prospect.
Mm-hmm. I just want to chime in again. Trey Lance has played 4 games. Sam Darnold has played what? Like anywhere between 25 and 50 games in the NFL at this point.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
How are you going to bury a kid that you moved up to get? How are you going to just bury him in the depth chart when last year you were saying that he was better than Brock Purdy? He was your starting quarterback. If Brock Purdy was really that good in practice and you had Trey Lance here, why wasn't Purdy starting all along? You should be able to evaluate that in practice.
Right. Well, yeah, it's hard. I think that's difficult because I think there comes a point for a coaching staff where it's like, all right, we have to rally behind this quarterback, right? So it's like they put all the chips in for Lance, and then his first season it's Garoppolo, and then Garoppolo was injured coming into last season, right? Or was it just boom, period, Lance has earned this job. It's his to lose going into last offseason. I forget.
Going into last offseason, Garoppolo was supposed to be gone. They were going to trade. They were going to.
And he was coming off. He was coming off the injury, NFC Championship, all that stuff.
Right. He had the shoulder surgery, and the 49ers couldn't trade him because of. I don't think anybody wanted to trade for him, and I don't think he could have passed a physical. Right.
Yeah.
And so Trey Lance was QB1. He was finally going to get his opportunity, and then Kyle Shanahan said, "Develop him as a passer? No, forget that. I'll use him as a fullback." And then ran him into the ground. It was bound to happen eventually, but I really didn't like the play calling that they used for Lance. And people always talk about how easy the Shanahan offense can be for quarterbacks. And so why doesn't he just draw it up the same way that he did for Brock? Or why doesn't he draw it up the same way that he did for Jimmy? Like, I get you want to utilize his strengths, but you have to build him up as a passer, because even if he does have those strengths, he's not going to be any better than Taysom Hill. No, seriously. Like, I mean,
yeah.
And honestly, at this point, if Brock's going to be the starter, the best case scenario, if you're going to have Brock as the starter, is to use Trey Lance as have a Taysom Hill kind of package, because it'll get Lance the reps that he needs to get comfortable with the game. And it'll keep the defense on their toes, and you'll probably be able to run the ball a little bit better.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, that was a thing that seemed clear that they were trying to do 2 years ago when Garoppolo was still the starter, but they would have Lance come in for those Taysom Hill sort of things, which at first, I'm sure for Niner fans, it was like, oh yeah, let's get this guy on the field. And then you realize wait, this is all he's doing. I don't know about this, and then now we're here, right?
The first passing touchdown in 2021 was by Trey Lance. Mm-hmm. They literally brought him into the red zone offense, and he threw a touchdown. I think it was to Trent Sherfield, if I remember correctly. It was against the Detroit Lions. And I think that the plan probably was to go with the 2 quarterback system, but Trey Lance broke his finger against the Raiders, and apparently he couldn't squeeze the ball with his pointer. I think it was his index finger, and so he had to try and throw the he had to try and learn how to throw the football without his index finger. And for those of you at home, just try and think about throwing a football without it. I don't think you're going to make it spiral very well, and so I'm not trying to make excuses, but I just think that it's very unfortunate the way that the situation has unfolded thus far for his career. And I don't think that after 4 games, the 49ers should panic and flock to Sam Darnold as their backup quarterback, because one thing we know about this 49ers team is that they have a head coach, or maybe it's just not the head coach, right? People argue whether Shanahan plays a part in the quarterbacks getting hurt. He's the common denominator, I will say. The quarterbacks just don't stay healthy on the 49ers. And so a very realistic possibility is that Brock Purdy goes down and Sam Darnold, who in this scenario is your quarterback 2, goes in and takes over, right? Sam Darnold is on a 1-year deal. And if you have the offense cater around Sam Darnold and he plays well, guess what? Quarterbacks are not cheap. And you're going to have a situation similar to Jimmy Garoppolo in 2017 when they made him the highest paid quarterback after 5 games. Right? I mean, this is just hypothetical, but it's like something like I think is very easy to see way ahead of time.
Yeah, I mean, so Sam Darnold is on a 1-year deal right now?
He's on a 1-year deal, I believe.
Okay. And then
correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but
yeah, and then Trey Lance is going into his 3rd or 4th?
He's going into his third year.
Okay, so that means
5-year rookie deal.
Well, 4
year
an option
with a fifth year option.
Which that is something that's key for this season is, can he prove to be worth that 5th-year option? Because next offseason is when they get to decide on that.
Mm-hmm.
Before his final 4th season, they have to decide on. That's what happened to Jacobs, to kind of take it full circle for a moment. But, the Raiders decided, no, this new, regime came in, they have to decide immediately on Jacobs' deal. And it's like, well, we're going to say no because it's a running back, and then, highest rusher last season. But as far as Trey Lance, he has to go out there and prove that he's worth that. And if he doesn't, it's just 2 years left on his deal. So you have Darnold with 1 year left, Lance with 2 years left, and I believe Purdy with 3 years left, because last season was his rookie year on a 4-year rookie contract.
Mm-hmm.
I understand in the way that like lays out for the Niners. I understand why Purdy is kind of their lead guy, mostly because of how he was on the field, but also you have 3 cheap years of him under contract. That's very good to like keep your core with your highly paid running back and, Deebo Samuel and, players like that. I mean, Trent Williams, right? Highest paid left tackle, I think. Maybe not anymore, but
at the time he was.
Yeah, and then
I think he got
all these players.
I think he got $500,000 more than the second highest paid left tackle, just to be the highest paid.
Right. So, having these young quarterbacks on pretty cheap deals, that's paying dividends right now for this roster. And like you said, if Sam Darnold becomes that guy that's like, oh, he might actually be our starter in a hypothetical situation, that gets thrown out the window if you have to sign him next offseason. I should say, having so many big contracts gets thrown out of the window if you have to sign a quarterback next offseason. So that's why financially and strategically, Brock Purdy makes the most sense. But as far as investments, previous investments, I mean, Trey Lance, those 3 first-round picks, it's like, yeah, I don't understand. I mean, if in practice it's proving to Shanahan Trey Lance isn't working out, then I get it. But, and also bear in mind, like Adam Schefter tweeting this or whatever he did on the Pat McAfee show, like maybe he just got this as a minor tidbit and he just ran with it because there's not much news to talk about right now, right?
Mm.
Um,
I
but I
mean,
don't
it
know.
could. I don't remember if it was just his opinion, but I would assume that a guy who's an NFL insider, like he is, and he's typically pretty spot on.
Yeah, he knows some
Um,
things,
he hears from people within the organization. Then again, dude, it's like the 49ers, I mean, under this regime, they just contradict themselves all the time. So it's like
Yeah,
you really don't know who to trust. Like he was pretty adamant that the Niners were taking Mac Jones, and everybody was pretty adamant. Oh, the pick was going to be Mac Jones, and
yeah,
then the Niners were like, "Haha, fuck you." It was Trey Lance, and then now they're stuck with a player that they clearly don't trust, and I
or
mean,
maybe they're trying to push. I don't know.
mhm.
I think
Well,
my
okay.
last thing that I'll say about this. Hold that
I
thought just one
I
minute.
I
But
just want to fix what I said. Not that they don't
sure.
trust Lance, they just don't publicly support him. So go ahead.
Yeah, no, I get that. And it also, all of these rumors and insider info that comes out is very anti-Lance. So yeah, totally.
That's what gets
Um,
views.
yeah. Um, I just if Darnold becomes this guy, whether he's the quarterback too or somehow gets a shot to become the starter somehow, which I doubt, he's again final year in the contract. It just strategically doesn't make sense. I mean, whatever's best for the team this season, go for it. But I would like to think that GMs try to like plan accordingly. So if I guess this is less about Darnold and more about Lance. If the GM for the John Lynch, that's his name, right? If
John
he
Lynch.
if he decides I want to trade one of these quarterbacks and get value because we messed up with the Trey Lance pick, we got to get something back, right? If you're not playing Trey Lance, you're not going to get any value for him. And
Mm-hmm.
if you're trying to trade Sam Darnold, guess what? You only have until week 8 or whatever the deadline is to do it because he's on a 1-year deal. Unless he is on a 2-year deal, I'm not sure, but if he's on a 1-year deal, you can't trade him. There's no way. So there's no major benefit unless he's actually a game changer for the Niners this season. He just makes sense as
Also,
a third stringer to me.
I don't think they would bring Darnold along for the ride if he was just going to be trade bait because one,
Yeah.
I don't think that this team needs necessarily like low end draft picks or whatever you would get for Sam Darnold.
Mm.
This team needs probably a little bit more cap room wherever they can save it. And I think that what they spent like I think 3 million on Sam Darnold, and that's with the 49ers being as strapped for cap space as they are. I mean,
Mm.
that can go into, I don't know, a solid defensive lineman.
Right.
Um, but I guess if the Niners' plan is, I mean, you have to trust the backup quarter. I mean, typically teams are kind of fucked when they're on their backup quarterback anyway.
Yeah.
But if you're telling me that the best case scenario, if Brock Purdy were to go down, which he's not even healthy yet. So one of these two backups might start the season. If you're telling me that the best case scenario is that if Brock Purdy were to go down, Sam Darnold is going to take this win now team and win a Super Bowl, I tell you, you're smoking crack. Has Sam Darnold ever been to the playoffs?
No. No way. He's been on the Jets and the Panthers.
Has he ever had a winning season?
Highly doubtful.
Yeah. It's like, all right.
And again,
That
he had some bad scenarios with those teams, but still, like he played pretty badly.
that's like coming to the 49ers and saying plan A was Kirk Cousins. Like,
Yeah.
okay, you didn't want to take a look at maybe Patrick Mahomes. Deshaun Watson? No, I want Kirk Cousins.
Right.
Like you got to figure out the quarterback first, then build the team around it, because then they just don't know who to rally behind, and it kind of makes it weird. And then you're always, I mean, content creators are making hella fucking money. How about that? It's like the media is making hella money because they can spin any kind of story that they want. So
yeah, I guess I'll finish with this. I don't mean to say that they only signed Darnold to trade one of the two other quarterbacks. Like, that's not why teams sign quarterbacks. Like, you look at the Niners and their playoff history the past 2 seasons, they went down because the quarterback went down, you know?
mm-hmm.
So having a good third quarterback is very wise. I think that's the reason why they got Sam Darnold. But I also think at some point something has to happen with Trey Lance. You can't put all that investment in him just for him to never get the real opportunity.
Yeah, he would be the biggest bust in history. And I don't even think it would be entirely his fault.
I still think it would be probably Jamarcus Russell, but it would be
Jamarcus Russell played 25 games. If Trey Lance gets buried after 4 games, I mean, it's hard to argue with that.
I think maybe the way to
Jamarcus Russell was one first-round pick.
He was the
Trey
first
Lance
overall
was 3.
pick. Yeah, I get that, but like Jamarcus Russell was genuinely horrible, whereas Trey Lance, it was just like he never got his shot and he got injured. Like, I don't know if I consider him a bust at the magnitude of Jamarcus Russell. Jamarcus Russell was like...
No. Jamarcus Russell was a bust, but it was his fault. I'm saying Lance would probably be the bigger bust just because of the draft capital, but it's not his fault. He didn't choose for the 49ers to move up 3 first-round picks. He didn't choose to go to a win now team. He didn't choose to be on the bench. He didn't choose to have the COVID year.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, probably I've heard people say that he should have stayed in college. Maybe. But his plan was to go to the NFL and make a bunch of money. That's what it's all about. If he goes back to college and he tears his ACL, he loses his rookie contract and he might go undrafted.
Mm.
So he secured the bag, got drafted 3rd overall, and then just was not given the chance. It's just the wrong team drafted him.
Yeah. We are into full-blown Trey Lance mode.
We are into full-blown Trey Lance mode.
Yeah.
But
shall we move on?
I think we should move on. But the last thing I'll say to wrap up the Schefter thing is Schefter's not in the building. So he may hear some stuff, but until Sam Darnold is officially ahead of Trey Lance on the depth chart, then yeah, I don't think that you really have to. I mean, you take it for what it's worth.